Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. I first met Secretary Clinton back in 1993 when I was among a group of folks asked to figure out how best to green the White House, which was her house at the time. It was an important undertaking for everyone involved, not just for the energy savings, but because we were showing every homeowner in the country that there were some pretty simple ways to save energy, save water, and save money. Over the next 20 years, our paths crossed a few times. As a New York State resident, I was thrilled when she became my senator. She made it a point to be the senator for all New Yorkers. She crisscrossed the state regularly, and for those of us who live in central and upstate New York, we all got to witness firsthand her deep passion for creating jobs and also for using sustainability to drive economic development. During this time, I found myself at a high school in Rochester, New York, to present a LEED plaque and discovered I had the honor of sharing the podium with the secretary. I was once again wowed by how she was so clearly connecting the dots between education, jobs, between sustainability and innovation. The Clinton Foundation, in which she is now deeply involved, and USGBC share a fundamental philosophy that's why we are so excited to have her with us this evening. We both believe that the best way to solve our problems is through the power of creative collaboration. That's how we transform lives and communities from what they are today to what they can be tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, the former First Lady of the United States, the former Senator from New York, the former Secretary of State, our great country, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Greenbuild, it is wonderful being with you. I wore green in honor of the occasion. I have to say, listening to Rick backstage, I felt like I was at a religious revival. I was certainly ready to sign on if I hadn't been a believer before I became one. And that's because what Rick has done with all of you is simply extraordinary. You have built a movement, and I am so proud to be here in support of you and that movement, and truly the impact you're making here in our country and around the world. I am delighted to have this opportunity, first and foremost, to say thank you. Thank you for bringing to public awareness what it will take for us to be more energy efficient, to create the atmosphere, both politically and economically, that will give us sustainability. There are so many wonderful sponsors of this event. I know that Saint-Gobain is here. They've been a terrific member of the Clinton Global Initiative. We want more and more companies to come here and be part of the council to agree that the way forward is the sustainable way. And that could not happen without the U.S. Green Building Council. As Rick said, I have been privileged to work with you and work with individual members in a range of issues as a senator, as a First Lady. And I have seen the results of your work as I traveled around the world as your Secretary of State. So this is a great conference because it brings together, in this city of firsts that were so well described by Rick in his opening speech, those of you who are on the cutting edge, from across industry, across our country, even the world, builders and planners, engineers and activists, investors and community leaders. I listened with great interest to my friend, Mayor Nutter, who just couldn't help himself given that big pitch to the Eagles. But he too has made sustainability and green building part of his agenda as the mayor of this great city. Now, I know that there are some of you who were waiting to hear with just so much anticipation what was going to happen. And it was already announced. Bon Jovi will be here. And he's not only a great musician who has given so many of us a lot of energy, aerobic exercise, but he himself is a great philanthropist and someone who's right in line with the values that all of you are here to celebrate and to put into action. Now, there's a lot I could say about the extraordinary work of the U.S. Green Building Council, because this really is, and I want you all to feel great about this, because this really is when a small group of committed people actually start a movement that is changing the world. You are doing that, and I see it, I know it, I thank you for it. When I first heard about it, it was a much smaller group than it is today. But it began in 1993 with a simple but powerful idea. Promoting sustainability in construction is good for business, as well as being good for the planet. Measure it, rate it, sell it, do well, do good, build beautiful buildings. It was an idea that was so profoundly true that I and others, when we first heard about it, just kind of looked up and said, well, of course, that is exactly what we need to be doing. Now, the green building movement is, of course, about combating climate change, protecting our environment. After all, more than 15% of carbon emissions around the globe come from our buildings, and they consume roughly 1/3 of the world's energy. So you are helping the United States reduce our own carbon footprint, putting us in a better position to urge other countries to do the same, including other big emitters like China and India. This movement is also, though, about our country's economic prosperity and energy security. As you know, construction was hit hard during the recession, and although we have started to recover, government budget cuts continue to hold back the growth that we need. It was recently reported that public investment in infrastructure has fallen to the lowest levels since World War II. It is now just at 3.6% of GDP. That is down from an average of 5% over recent decades. So fewer schools are being built or renovated. Smart grids are stuck on the drawing board. And we're sitting pat while competitors are racing ahead. I find that we have some very good answers to the challenges we face if we think about how green construction and retrofitting have and would continue to create millions of good jobs that cannot be outsourced, to jumpstart growth and innovation, to dramatically lower our domestic energy consumption. This movement is also about the health and well-being of our citizens, especially our children. Removing toxic building materials improving air quality, encouraging creative lifestyles and walkable neighborhoods. That's a much healthier way to live. And the movement is truly all about building the kind of future we want to leave to the next generation. Now, the same year the Green Building Council began its work, as Rick said, Bill and I moved into the White House and decided we wanted to turn the White House into a model of energy efficiency. And we did call it the greening of the White House. The old air conditioning and heating systems got a makeover. New windows went up that let more light in and less heat out. We installed compact fluorescent light bulbs all over the building, from the massive floodlights outside to our bedside lamps in the residence. So by 1996, we were saving more than $150,000 a year in energy and water costs and other expenses. And by 1999, that figure had doubled. And the White House had reduced its annual carbon emissions by at least 845 metric tons. Now, we were not the only one We were certainly not the only ones who were following your lead. More and more buildings and businesses started seeing the wisdom of green construction and energy efficiency. And the growth has been amazing. More than 51,000 commercial projects today participate in the LEED Green Building certification system, and that represents more than 10 billion square feet in 50 countries, in 50 states and 135 countries. I'm particularly proud that all new United States embassies and consulates around the globe are now required to meet LEED Silver standards. I decided we would call that greening diplomacy. It's part of an initiative we started at the State Department, both to conserve resources and to send a message to the world about America's priorities and values. Now, after all the progress we've seen over the past 20 years, the U.S. Green Building Council, I believe, is poised to really take it to a new level. By 2015, the non-residential market for green construction is estimated to grow between $120 and $145 billion. And that is an opportunity for all of you and those you represent. The Council is committed to bringing green buildings to every community within a generation. I'd like that even speeded up, maybe a half a generation. Already, the LEED certification program is transforming the industry because of the rigorous data analysis that is now common practice. It is easier to calculate the savings that will come from green improvements. And finally, we see investors who never were interested before starting to finance capital improvements based on the anticipated cash flow from reduced energy costs. That's important, as you know, because financing remains a major obstacle preventing even more green projects from getting started. If you want to understand the values at the heart of the Green Building Council, I think it is important we look at schools. When I was senator from New York, as Rick was saying, I became very concerned that too many of our children were spending their school days in crumbling classrooms, poorly lit, overcrowded, breathing in mold and other toxins. Schools were wasting money on heating and cooling that was outdated. They could have used that to upgrade their information technology or even give teachers a pay raise. And that is where the Center for Green Schools comes in, because what you're doing is helping schools make improvements that save, on average, $100,000 each year on operating expenses, use 33% less energy and 32% less water. Now, that in and of itself is great because it saves money, and that's important for our schools, but it is also good for our children's health and their learning. We know that children in environments in their schools that are unhealthy cannot deal with some of the consequences of those environments. And we also know that in too many schools, the surroundings actually interfere with the learning process. So through the Green Apple Day of Service, a commitment to action made at the Clinton Global Initiative, you are getting private sector companies involved in this work. And I was very pleased that at last year's launch, you mobilized 168,000 volunteers for service projects at schools in 50 countries that helped millions of students. This is something I'm very proud of, and I could hear you are too, because this philanthropic effort by the Green Building Council of the United States really does represent our best values. And I would travel, I went to 112 countries, and I saw a lot of places that had been somehow either influenced or directly helped by the sustainability agenda of the Council. I'm particularly grateful for the work you've done in Haiti to build back better after that devastating earthquake. What does that mean? Well, it includes the construction, as Rick was saying, of the country's first LEED certified orphanage and children's center. And I have to tell you how deeply moved my husband is that you decided to name it in his honor. He has been working to help Haiti for decades. And it is a wonderful privilege for him. And I want to thank you for your long partnership with the Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative. You may know that retrofitting buildings is a key part of our Clinton Climate Initiative. We work with the private and public sector in partnerships to reduce carbon emissions, improve energy efficiency, spur more investments in green construction, including through some innovative new financing tools. My favorite example of this is the retrofit of the Empire State Building. Think about that iconic building in our largest city, 2.8 million square feet of office space. Now, it was an extensive effort, as you can imagine, improving windows, insulating radiators, updating lighting, temperature control systems, but 275 jobs were created over 2 years. And in the end, the Empire State Building received gold certification. And in addition to that honor, the retrofit reduced its annual energy consumption by 38%, worth roughly $4.4 million a year. The Clinton Climate Initiative could not have done it without the inspiration and support of the Council and your partners. And afterwards, the owner of the building said, greater energy efficiency means higher profits, greater competitiveness, and a better result for the bottom line for everyone involved. So we know this works. And over the last 20 years, you have seen slow, steady progress. But as I said, I think we're at a new level. The work has proven itself. We know what to do. We just have to be better organized and focused and create new partnerships to do even more. When I was Secretary of State, I saw one lesson over and over again that came through loudly and clearly. The future will belong to those countries, communities, and companies who are looking forward over the horizon rather than standing pat or even looking backwards, who are making choices and investments that will put them further ahead tomorrow. And there is no doubt any longer that green buildings are some of the best investments we can make. When the Empire State Building first opened in 1931, Franklin Roosevelt, then the governor of New York, said, "This building is needed not only by the city, it is needed by the whole nation." Well, today I would argue that the work you are doing is needed by the whole nation and the whole world. We really need you to continue not only doing what you do every day, focusing on the future, making sustainability the rule, not the exception, driving innovation and efficiency. You will be creating jobs and opportunity. But more than that, you will be tapping into the spirit that made this country possible, that happened not too far from where we are tonight. I listened carefully to what Rick said, and I think his words really struck a deep chord, because we all know we not only can do better, we must do better. We have to get back to working in ways that bring us together, not drive us apart. We have to look for opportunities to rebuild trust among ourselves. We have to overcome the divisiveness that has marked our political life and is tearing at the fabric of our society. We've gone through difficult times before, we know that, and we've always come through them stronger and more resilient. I like to quote something that Winston Churchill allegedly said. He said, "You know, the Americans always get around to doing the right things after trying nearly everything else." Well, we've been trying nearly everything else for a while now, and it is time for us to start doing not only the right things, but the smart things. And at the top of any agenda about America's future, sustainability has to be viewed as one of the key goals for building back stronger here at home, for creating jobs that will not only give people a good income, but help build their communities again. So I am delighted to be here with all of you. And I would only close by asking you to not only come to this conference, cheer the speakers, but leave it committed to making the case to even more people, to taking what you know works and explaining it to everyone you can get to listen to you, to going to other businesses that could make a big difference in our sustainability agenda. Even if you think it may be a futile trip, you've got to start somewhere. To go to your elected officials at the local, state, and national level to keep making this case. Because I think we are at a turning point. The American people know we can and must do better, but they need to be given the ideas that will help them understand the decisions that they must be making. And standing up for the work of this council and for the difference you are already making will give heart to a lot of your fellow citizens. And yes, they will begin to believe the glass is half full and that there is so much more we can do together to put our country back on the right path to the kind of future that Americans deserve. Thank you so much, Green Building Council and Greenbuild Nation.